I'm Janeane, and this is Outside the Box. Thanks for watching. Today's special guest is Scott Brick. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
I met you years ago. I went to an event. Maybe it was either a webinar or a live thing, but Pat Fraley, big
Yes.
voiceover person. And you are the narrator of all narrators, so I heard. You've done some incredible work, and I've kind of followed your career a little bit. And I always thought that was so intriguing. So I thought I would have, as I mentioned earlier, a segment on Outside the Box that talks about entertainment and what people can do to work remotely if they're actors and actresses. Yeah. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, when the lockdown started, my first thought was, thank God, my friends and I, my colleagues, the voiceover people, the industry in general, thank God we prepared for this way back in the day.
Yes.
I think I opened my home studio in 2008. So my advice, if you don't have one now, look into it.
Yes.
See what you can do. And people are being really inventive. Not everybody has a spare room. Not everybody has even a spare closet that they can convert.
Yes.
But I know a good friend of mine, he shall go nameless, but he hangs up quilts, has made basically a little fort. And,
it works.
We do what we can. The listener doesn't know that you're in your closet.
No,
so,
no.
I'd say getting the studio, getting a setup is step one. And then it's a combination of, you have to create a demo. You have to get excerpts that the producers will listen to.
Mm-hmm.
There are casting websites that you can go to. Ahab is one. That's owned by Penguin Random House.
I've never heard of that. It's called Ahab?
Ahab. I don't have it in front of me. I want to say something like ahab.us, ahab.
Okay.
I don't remember what the extension is. It's
That's
not
okay.
a
People
.com.
can Google it. Okay.
Yeah, easy to find.
Yeah.
That's their casting website, and you can go and put up a profile there. The same thing on acx.com, the Audiobook Creation
That's a big
Exchange.
one.
Yeah, a lot of work goes through ACX.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people get their start in the industry there. It's hard, finding the right kind of title,
Yes.
It's kind of like Match.com, but for for rights holders and narrators.
Boom, you hit that one. Yeah.
Right.
True.
Right. So you want to make sure that you get excerpts that really serve you, that really demonstrate your skills to the best of your ability. Put up profiles on Ahab, put them up on ACX, and then start auditioning.
Definitely.
Go out, meet the players.
Right.
Even though we can't really meet in person at the moment.
Sure.
There are nevertheless virtual mixers that the Audio Publishers Association, you can find them at audiopub.org. They have virtual get-togethers every few months, and
Great
producers
advice.
and publishers get on there, and you can introduce yourself and say, hey, haven't worked with you before, but I'd sure like to.
That's a great idea. Because people need to have some kind of positivity right now. It's so hard knowing, let's say I'm an actress and I'm used to working a day gig or an evening gig so I could go to all my auditions or, be
Sure.
available. And now that paycheck is not there right now. It's so hard.
It is. And which is why a number of colleagues of mine have started looking into other areas of voiceover that they might never have done before. A number of friends of mine have reached out to do medical narration, to do e-learning.
That's a big one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And especially now. Medical narration, my God, there's a huge need for it right now. And there's only going to be more, even when all this hopefully calms down.
And all the distance learning that's going on, as you said, e-learning is a huge industry, massive industry. What are some skills you would say people need to be a voice actor?
Well, it's interesting. I have so many friends who've come from very, very different backgrounds. Most of them have got some kind of performance history, or if not, have certainly taken acting training. I think that's really key. I think job one, I'll probably say that a lot. I say that a lot in my life. Okay. I'll be like, hey, job one is making sure you get the author's words across. Job one is, shutting up the inner critic. A very important job is sharing yourself with the listener. And if you don't have acting training, it's hard to get somebody who doesn't have that same lexicon, sure. And make them understand, what you do. So yeah, I always recommend that if people don't have acting training, that they go get some. It's never too late. Sure. And even if their training was doing community theater when they were in junior high, well, that's still,
something.
You've got the basics. Right. So beyond that, there are, cold reading skills really help, because even though you aren't reading it cold, it forces you to be mentally alert, yes. Really quick on your feet. Things come and go. You could miss them. It really, if you've never taken a cold reading class, I highly recommend that, because it keeps you mentally focused.
Those are so good. I took them at the SAG Conservatory.
Oh, right. Yeah. They really, I use that skill every single day in my career, every single day.
Yeah. At first I had a hard time when I had to memorize stuff, but then cold reading is a whole other skill of grabbing the words off the page, connecting, with your reader.
Because when you're doing voiceover, yes, you're concentrating on this sentence, but that you've got the next one, and then you've got the next one, then you've got the next one, and you have to be able to kind of skim ahead just a little bit. Your peripheral vision needs to be able to pick up the fact that, okay, this is the end of a chapter, so I'm going to read the last few lines of it a little differently than I would if it was the middle of the chapter. Yes. Yeah. So
how do you mentioned our inner critic? There's a lot of the negative self-talk. I sounded terrible, or I can't stand the way that I read that. How do you silence that as a voice actor?
It's hard. It keeps coming. Yeah, I've been doing this for over 20 years, and it still hits
You still
me.
Get that way?
Oh God, sure, absolutely.
Really?
Oh yeah, yeah. And it won't get better if you read your Audible reviews.
I won't even listen to my audiobook.
No, I that way lies madness. Right. I learned very early on not to do a Twitter search for my name. But look, my approach is I focus on the fact that I've been cast. And to me, that has to be enough. Every single casting person that I've ever talked to about this, they have all said the same thing. Casting is 80% of the job. Well, then that means you were perfectly cast. If you get the gig, it means that you're perfect for it.
Sure.
And I encourage all of my students, remember, you are perfectly cast, because by virtue of the fact that you got the gig. So
just breathe and enjoy the moment and do the work.
Sometimes it's funny, working with Pat Fraley as I do so often, we were encouraging somebody to go a little slower. And he said, yeah, you want to do that so the audience, can catch up. You want to give them time to digest that. And I say, no, I want to go slower because I really want to suck the marrow out of the bones of this experience. This is a cool gig.
It is.
So yeah, I do my best to just relax, don't listen to the voice, and just sit back into it and just enjoy myself. Living in the booth is fun, and if you're not having fun,
maybe pick something
change
else.
That. Yeah, right, exactly.
I actually got into voice acting. I was living in Boston, and I was at Hewlett Packard, and there was a project, and they wanted a narrator, someone to be on camera, then someone to do the audio, and no one would offer to do it, so I offered to do it. And then I used to go and sit in production and watch what would go on and see who they'd select. And I just started listening more and more to the voice actors that were getting cast. And then I went to casting, and I started taking classes, and just taking the classes, building the confidence and the skill was everything.
Well, also what you're doing is you're being proactive. We get out of life what we put into it. And when you teach yourself a new skill, you open up a world of new opportunities. A colleague and a good friend of mine, Chuck Constant, he's a really wonderful narrator. And a couple of years ago, he told me that he was flying out of town for a weekend conference. It was Chicago or someplace. And I said, what are you off to do? And he says, well, I'm going to go learn the basics. I'm going to go be trained so I can do audio description for the blind. Because movies and TV shows, most of them nowadays have, in the same way that you would have, the subtitles for the hearing impaired.
Yes.
Now they have this for the visually impaired. So they describe what's happening in the movies or in the TV shows. And Chuck just saw an opportunity and said, you know what? It just makes perfect sense.
Yes.
Why wouldn't they want a narrator?
Sure.
And as it turns out, I now know several people who do this kind of work. But I remember I told him, I said, I respect you so much for making that choice. And it was an investment, not just of time. He had to pay. It was his own dime to go learn this new skill. But it opened up a world of opportunities for him.
Great
idea.
idea.
He was able to quit his job.
Oh, he did? He quit his job?
Yeah, well, he still had a day job at the time.
Yeah.
And so this was the bridge he needed to supplement what he wasn't making in audiobooks.
Right. What is your background? How did you get into voice acting?
I went to UCLA as a theater student. I did about 10 years of Shakespeare afterward, traveling around California. And it's funny, I'm actually back at UCLA now. They brought me back, and now I'm teaching the third-year graduate students audiobook narration.
Circle.
Which is really fun. There was never an audiobook class in America, at least on the collegiate level. And
I love it.
Yeah, okay. That looks good on the resume. Anyway, yeah, out of school, I did 10 years of Shakespeare, and then a buddy of mine that I'd gone to UCLA with, we were playing ball on weekends, and come to find out he was working for a company called Dove Audio. And sadly, they're not around anymore, but this was 1999, and he got me an audition, and one thing led to the next.
What can you tell people about the world of audiobooks, though? Because it's different than just going in and doing a commercial. You have to really understand how to prepare as far as, pacing and everything else.
It's, the difference from the rest of the voiceover world is, it's like a marathon. It's not a sprint. And, money-wise, it pays well. But when you consider how many hours go into a project, depending on whether or not you're also handling the editing, the post-production, what have you. But even just doing the research, reading the book ahead of time, prepping the book, there's a lot more involved than walking into a studio and they hand you, a 15-second tag. You do have to love it. You have to be, it really helps if you're a book fan. It's also kind of a different vibe from the rest of entertainment, because it's not the entertainment industry. It's the publishing industry. They just hire entertainers to do the audiobooks. So because it's the world of publishing, everybody loves books. And it feels a lot more like a family. I think we've all been really blessed to work with people that we're very close to. God, there's a producer who hired me years ago, about 10 years ago, for a series of stories for NASCAR, and he and I are still really, really close.
That's great.
And yet, those relationships are rare because it's a commodity. You're a business, right? You come in, you spend so little time with the people that you're working with, and then you go home and you move on to the next one.
Mm-hmm.
In audiobooks, you work with people for extended periods of time.
Yes.
And as a result, we all kind of tend to treat one another like family rather than a commodity.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, I've never been more thankful to do a job in my life. It's a nice world.
That was the impression I got when I saw you speak. And I think you were talking about ACX in an event, that you're very well respected. You're humble. You've had this great career of different projects you've worked on. And you just feel very fortunate to do what you do.
I really do. I mean, I still get surprised, I remember so clearly what it felt like on 3 different occasions. One was when they said, "Would you do In Cold Blood?" The other was, "Would you do Jurassic Park?" And the third was when they said, "Would you do The Hunt for Red October?"
Wow.
And I remember I just stared at them and I thought, why me? What?
Why
are you
me?
sure?
Mm.
That
was your inner dialogue? That didn't come out of your mouth, right?
No. It was
Okay.
I kept that one quiet. But I still, I'm just delighted whenever a gig comes along, and I can understand why they would want me to do it, and I get the business behind it, but I still just feel just tickled. Like,
it's great.
Really? I get to do Jurassic Park? How cool, So, as I say, it's.
And then the exterior, let me check my schedule.
Yeah, right.
I'll let you know.
Look, I'll tell you, I auditioned for the Jack Reacher books, and I have loved that series forever, and I just read them as a fan because I just love the character. And my friend Dick Hill narrated them for 15 years, and I was always jealous. Not really jealous, but I was like, "Oh,
part of you,
rasm, frasm, frickin' frack, you get to do those books." And I was at Penguin Random House one day, and when I was on, I happened to check Facebook, and Dick had announced his retirement.
Oh.
And I walked into the office and I said, "Look, I'm sorry if this makes me a jerk, but I feel like the body's not even cold yet, but I'd really like to be considered for this series." And they were so nice.
Oh, good.
And it took about a month. They read about 5 or 10 of us. I don't remember how many, but when I met Lee Child for the first time, the author, I introduced myself, and I put my hand out, and he slaps my hand away, and he wraps me in a bear hug.
Aww.
Guy's 6'6", wraps me in a bear hug and says, "Welcome to the family."
That's really nice.
And I just, I thought, I can't believe I get to do this for a living.
That's rare.
Yeah.
You can't say that of other industries, a lot of other industries.
No, but I do. And every single day I go into the studio, even if I'm tired, even if I got a sore throat, even if I am overwhelmed with work, as I often am, it's a good position to be in. It's a good problem to have. And I do as much instruction as I can because, look, the way I look at it, everything good in my life happened as a result of audiobooks. Jimmy Stewart, playing George Bailey in It's a Wonderful Life, he talks about what's deep in the heart of mankind. It's the love of, it's the desire to have a home, a relationship, a career. And I have all 3 of those because of audiobooks.
That's beautiful.
So I do as much as I can to make myself available to speak to people at conferences. I've got a 3-hour webinar next week, another one after that. I do my UCLA class. The way I look at it is, why should I be the only one having all the fun, you know?
Great. When people want to hear what you have to say, your expertise, your advice, so where can people find out more about any classes? And because now's the time people want to take classes and work on
Of course, sure. My website, scottbrick.net, or you can go to brickbybrickaudiobooks.com. They both live at the same place.
Okay.
If you go to scottbrick.net, there's in the upper left corner, there's a tag for events, and that's when we're allowed to again and actually have in-person events. There'll be information there, but then there's a resources page as well, and that's where people can go for coaching, or if you want to, get an archived copy of an old webinar I did.
Good.
That's where most of the information is.
Are you doing any Zoom classes?
Oh yeah, I do them. I do them every day.
Oh, you do? Okay.
While I've been in quarantine, I've been trying to make an hour available every day.
Good.
And sometimes it's, as part of a conference. We've got one coming up in August. Other times it's just one-on-one coaching. So,
good. Yeah, because I'm thinking a lot of people want to work on their voiceover skills,
sure.
learn new things. They could reach out to you and see what your schedule's like. Yeah.
Totally. If I'm not, buried with work, I'll do my best to make myself available.
Where can people find out about these conferences? You said they're all on your website?
Yes. The one that's coming up in August hasn't been announced yet.
Okay.
Well, the conference has been announced. We haven't put it up on the website yet. But yes. Sorry, I'm actually just checking my... it is going to be August. I'm doing a 3-hour class on Friday, August 14th. And then the conference is also doing an audiobook panel on Saturday, the 15th. And the details will be up on my website.
Is it for people that are interested in just audiobooks, or the whole gamut from animation, commercials, everything?
This is actually, it's a voiceover conference.
Good.
Just the whole gamut.
The whole thing.
I'm offering a class, 12 or 14 people. And so it will be specifically audiobooks for anybody within the conference who wants to learn about audiobooks. That's what we're going to do on the Friday. And then on Saturday, everybody can attend this panel.
Good.
That we're doing.
Good.
So
before we wrap, is there any last bit of advice for people that are out of work, they're struggling voice actors? You tapped into e-learning, audiobooks. Mm-hmm. There's other websites. Obviously, people need to be careful where they put their money into.
Yes. There are a number of voiceover artists who have made themselves, they're just the soul of generosity. And I love and admire these people. J. Michael Collins and Anne Ganguza did a webinar a while ago. And, the beauty of a webinar from, a coach's perspective is it could be 10 years after you did it and somebody could still buy it, download it, and, still glean the wisdom. They made that e-learning webinar that they did available for free during quarantine. And I believe the offer is still open. I can't speak for him, but J. Michael Collins has also been giving people free 20-minute
coaching
consults.
Good.
For the people who were saying, well, maybe I don't know if I'd be good at it or not. Mm-hmm. Well, he'll chat with you for 20 minutes for free. So the webinar is free. The consult has been free. I'm assuming the offer is still going. Pat Fraley, if you go to patfraley.com, he has a free resources page at the top. A number of voiceover artists have made things available for free.
Good.
We didn't have that much in terms of webinars archived, so we've been making audiobooks for free on my website instead of the instruction. But people are really responding to what's going on in the world today, and as I said, I admire that a great deal.
There's a lot of great things on Facebook. I'm noticing a lot of voice actors are going going live and sharing their advice, or opening up to Q&A for people to tap into. So people should get involved in that.
There's also, I mean, look, YouTube is a great resource if you're with using discretion.
Sure.
There are a number of, I went on YouTube recently and I said, you know, how to narrate audiobooks. And half the videos that came up, I'd never heard of these people. And I don't mean to be insulting, but I'm like,
no, I know.
I should have heard of them.
You've heard of them,
you know.
Yes.
But there's a SAG Foundation video. It's 2 hours long. And I believe it's called How to Get Paid to Talk. I can send you the link.
I'd like to see that.
But yeah, it was a panel that we did in 2014, I want to say. Myself, Pat Fraley, and Hillary Huber, marvelous narrator. And Jason Ojalvo, who created ACX, he introduced it. He spends the first 10-15 minutes talking about the business, how the business of audiobooks works. And then Pat, Hillary, and I came out and we started talking about the skills for about an hour and a half, and we worked with a couple of volunteers. That's a 2-hour video that's completely free.
Worth watching.
Yeah, it really is. I send people to it all the time. And I've met people, a couple of my colleagues now told me that they were in the audience that night and they'd never done an audiobook, and now they're doing it full time. So I hope it helps.
Good. Well, I want to thank you so much. I've really enjoyed chatting with you. You gave a lot of good advice to people right now.
Oh, I'm so glad. I hope it was helpful. And anybody out there who is interested in doing audiobooks, my advice to you, go forth and read.
You bet. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.